Welcome to TMZ Live. Harvey Levin here.
Charles here.
There is new significant evidence showing that Scott Peterson did not murder his wife Lacey and their unborn son Connor. So says the LA Innocence Project, and they are asking for a new trial.
Right, and they have presented this evidence now to the Court of Appeals here in California, and they say that due to scientific testing that was not available at the time of the murders, 22 years ago.
The murders, the prosecution says December 24th, 2002.
Right. Well, they say these new testing that is available shows that Scott Peterson, and up to this point, police have believed that Scott Peterson committed these murders on December 24th.
Now, there is new
evidence that shows...
This is according to the LA Innocence Project. What they are saying is that there is a new fetal test that they do that can establish when the fetus is no longer alive. And they say, based on testing that was not available at the time of the trial, the date of death was somewhere between December 28th, 2002 and January 5th, 2003.
And that would not, if that's the case.
If that's the case, what they're saying is it couldn't have been Scott who did it.
Because the police were up his you-know-what at that point on December 28th. They were already following his every move.
For days.
For days. They were all over him with helicopters, following him on the ground.
So we got into this. By the way, this is not the only thing that they brought up, but it is a big thing they brought up. And we got into this on our Two Angry Men podcast with Mark Garagos and myself. Nancy Grace, who followed
nice
this.
Of her to stop by.
She followed this trial soup to nuts. When she heard about this, she went off. They're saying that you can actually look at the development of the fetus, and they put the actual date of death sometime between December 28th and January 5th of 2003. If that were the case, he would not have done it because the prosecution's case is he did it on the 24th of December. So they're saying there is this new testing. This was the most fascinating part of what they wrote as far as I'm concerned, that if that's true and if this test is legit, that does raise a question, right?
Well, and by the way, combined...
I don't know, but have either one of you ever given birth? Just curious. I'm guessing the answer is no.
No.
Because I've sat through many a sonogram where they tried to determine the correct age of the baby, when the baby was going to be born. And now the Innocence Project, with their medical degree, is telling me that the doctors at the time, Lacey's doctor, her OBGYN, was wrong, and they're right 20 years later. Okay, good. You tell that to a jury. Let's see what happens.
We should stress, again, it's the LA Innocence Project
right.
that has presented this evidence. But, yeah, very clearly, Nancy is not buying it. I know she was referring to a sonogram there, which is not the technology of the testing that the LA Innocence Project is referring to. Right?
There is one, I think, you know, and this came out in our morning meeting this morning. There's one flaw in this, which is sometimes a fetus can actually keep living after the mother dies. And if that's the case, it could have been Lacey was murdered on the 24th,
right,
theoretically, and that the baby didn't die until the 28th. I mean, that's a possibility.
I would guess the state would say that. Some of the other things that the LA Innocence Project presented has to do with DNA testing that was not done. And again, the overarching theme they have is that the police did not pursue other avenues.
There were three burglaries around her block in the 24 hours around the time she went missing. There were two people who were caught, and there was also a van that people in the neighborhood saw. And these two people who were caught, who confessed, said that Lacey...
confessed to the robberies.
Confessed to the robberies, said that Lacey Peterson had confronted them. If that's true, that would have been after Scott went fishing. The other thing is that van was burnt up, and there was a mattress inside with blood on it. Now, the blood was crudely tested with DNA testing, and at least according to Nancy, it returned that it was a male, which wouldn't have been consistent with Lacey's blood.
Right.
But what the Innocence Project is saying, LA Innocence Project, is that there would have been more sophisticated DNA testing they could have done to establish if it was her. So I don't know how this is going to go.
DeJuan from Alabama. This is a sad situation. This is really a sad situation. I can understand people who might take the stance of Nancy, and no matter how gruesome or how upset you might be at a situation like this, I think with what they're presenting it's worth looking into. I'm a father of two, and I can only imagine being sent to prison for something like this, something that I did not do. So overall, this is just a sad situation. If it's him, let him stay where he is. If it's not, then there's somebody out there still loose that killed Lacey and Connor. So I just really hope that they can get to the bottom of it.
I got to tell you, Garagos and Nancy really got into it. So check out the Two Angry Men podcast.
Yes.
Okay, we are going to move on.
To Blake Lively, and a big night for her. A night that she was celebrated by Time Magazine. And right after she was celebrated, she was completely roasted by Megyn Kelly. The Time part of this was their big gala that they had for their 100 most influential list. And we had told you last week that Blake made the list as a Titan. So last night she was presented with this honor. She said, and she had a few remarks about this again, and we pointed this out when they put her in the magazine. No mention whatsoever of Justin Baldoni. This is not about her taking a stand against Justin and against sexual harassment.
And may I stop you for a second? But
you think that's why they picked her?
These lists are designed so that the media will cover it. It helps Time Magazine. Blake Lively shows up, there are going to be more cameras there, more attention.
And certainly there was. Here is just a little bit of Blake's speech.
So much to say about the last 2 years of my life, but tonight is not the forum. What I will speak to separately is the feeling of being a woman who has a voice today. And since I could speak, because of the pain, caution, and fight of the many women who have paved the way and the men who stood beside them. My life was influenced most by my mother, sitting here tonight, Willie Elaine McAlpin. She wanted me to share with you that she is a survivor of the worst crime someone can commit against a woman. I've watched her conceal her raw and undeserved shame my entire life, just as our fellow Time 100 honoree, the incredible Giselle Pellicot, put it to every woman who understood. It's not for us to have shame, it's for them.
So, you saw Ryan Reynolds was sitting there next to Blake's mom. She clearly was making references to what is going on with Justin Baldoni, but never got into any of that. Well, Megyn Kelly, who was also at this event, she is not buying what Blake is selling.
There's a lot of controversy right now with Blake being on the Time 100 list.
It's a ridiculous joke. She shouldn't be there. She has no influence over anything. I think she launched a fake Me Too allegation against him, and she's lived to regret doing it because virtually every allegation she has made has fallen apart. And so for her to be honored for doing that, to try to ruin a man over absolutely nothing, is a scandal.
Yeah.
And obviously they're looking for big stars to come here and generate pages on their magazines, but that was very wrong.
By the way, pretty keen of Time to invite Megyn as well.
Absolutely.
Because they knew.
They knew.
They know how Megyn feels about it.
They know the game.
Right.
They know the game.
Yeah, but, Blake has been getting a ton of criticism ever since she was named, like, the Titan and the issue and things like that. But this is kind of the first person to be so vocal against Blake. By the way, within, inches of where Blake was. They're obviously there at the same event, so it's got to be kind of awkward. But a lot of people felt like Blake wasn't even worthy of this. It had nothing to do with her taking a stand about sexual harassment in the industry. It all had to do with her charitable actions in the past. So it's very fishy as to why she received this honor in the first place.
I don't want to, besmirch. The reason that she was given this was the fact that she had supported the NAACP Legal Defense Fund in 2019 and has continued to, by all accounts, and that is certainly
I guess
important.
It's definitely charitable. The question is it influential?
And does it make you a titan?
Right.
Right.
Hi, it is Shannon from Pennsylvania. My opinion about Megyn Kelly is I feel like she is a jealous individual. She wants to continue to stay relevant on her podcast. She don't like to see other people receive flowers because she hadn't received her flowers.
Well, she was named. She was named. She was on that list.
Yeah.
She was on that list.
Not as a titan, though.
Not as a titan, as an influencer.
Right.
Okay. We are going to take a break.
All right, when we come back, Shannon Sharpe defending himself against what some people have thought seems strange. The fact that he offered his accuser at least $10 million to make this all go away. He's now explaining why he did that. Shannon Sharpe finds himself in an interesting position that we've seen this before with other celebrities. When you are sued, you have a civil lawsuit filed against you, and there are allegations made. If you settle, or if you make an offer to settle, a lot of times people in the public go like, "Oh, well, their person is clearly guilty of that."
Right.
Well, Shannon Sharpe wants to make it clear that the fact that he offered his accuser at least $10 million, is the way his attorney put it, does not mean that he is admitting anything or that he is guilty. What he wanted to do is for none of the details of his sex life to come out, which interestingly now he is putting it all out there.
And the very reason he said he didn't want it to come out, you see it unfolding that now he's walked away from ESPN, at least temporarily.
Yes. So this is what his attorney this morning said. While Shannon was willing to pay her a substantial amount of money to avoid the intimate details of his personal life from being exposed, that is no longer the case. This is a shakedown, pure and simple, and we have the evidence to prove it. So the part about that is no longer the case, I mean, obviously it's not the case because she filed the lawsuit and there were details that came out in that, and then subsequently her attorney, Tony Busby, has released these phone conversations that she recorded where you hear him saying things like, I'm going to choke you, or I might choke you in public. And I think rather interestingly, what was the quote? Big black man chokes little white woman.
Right. So it depends on how you view it. I mean, from his perspective, what he's saying, from her perspective, she's saying it's a threat. From his perspective, he's saying it's evidence of role playing because you don't hear the shock and awe.
And now he has to be open about all of that. And if he wants to win, at least in the court of public opinion and perhaps eventually in an actual court of law, he is going to have to be extremely open about all of his sex life now.
Well, he kind of has been already.
Yeah.
And we know that based on his initial statement where he said, look, Tony Busby is going to say, hey, we have a short video of me in the bedroom with the accuser. Release the whole thing. I have nothing to hide anymore. And we've all seen these texts in this newsroom. I mean, this is a complete 180 from initially trying to keep all of this private. It is quite embarrassing stuff. And he says, look, now to clear my name, let it all out there.
Does this go to trial?
This reminds me of, and it's not the same allegations as Cassie, but you had Cassie threatened to file a lawsuit against Diddy.
Right.
He refused to settle with her. She files a lawsuit, and then he immediately settled. That doesn't seem to be what's happening here with Shannon, because he didn't immediately settle.
Right.
But the longer this goes on, the more time he has to spend away from his show First Take on ESPN. Does he decide, all right, let's settle it?
And by the way, that's kind of, it's really kind of an interesting thing that goes on in the law, that, people can make a demand and then the other side has to calculate what are the damages, even if I didn't do anything for it to come out. And sometimes it's legit, but sometimes it's not. And when it's not, and you demand money and they pay,
right.
What some people call it, and I'm not saying it's this case, but what some people call that is legalized extortion.
Right.
Now the question is this legit or is it not?
Yeah.
And I don't think it's necessarily clear to anybody.
I'm Marie Libiter from Fort Smith, Arkansas. At the end of the day, this will all legally come out in court, and if the allegations are false, then Shannon should countersue for defamation.
We're a long way away from that happening.
Yeah, I mean, that's...
if it even ends up in court.
Yeah, I don't think that is even going to happen. We got to move on.
Yes, to Larry David versus Bill Maher. Of course...
We've been friends over the years.
Yes, and there's been a lot of reaction to Bill Maher, not only him having the dinner with President Trump, but then his characterization of President Trump afterward. That characterization is what prompted Larry David to write an op-ed piece in the New York Times where he mocked Bill Maher's characterization, said, Larry David, my dinner with Adolf. So now it is Bill Maher's turn to rebut. And this is...
Which he was not slow to do.
No, he was not. This is what he said to Piers Morgan.
I think the minute you play the Hitler card...
That's what I think.
You've lost the argument.
Yes.
And also, I must say, come on, man. Hitler, Nazis, nobody has been harder about and more prescient, I must say, about Donald Trump than me. I don't need to be lectured on who Donald Trump is. Just the fact that I met him in person didn't change that. And the fact that I reported honestly is not a sin either. But, to use the Hitler thing, first of all, I just think it's kind of insulting to 6 million dead Jews, like that should kind of be in its own place in history.
I think that was perfectly said by Bill there. I think it's incredibly insulting to people for Larry David to compare a politician that he might not like. And I get that Trump is probably the most polarizing politician that we've seen in decades and that people hate him and you can think he's a threat to the Constitution. But to compare him to somebody who was responsible for the murder of 6 million Jews and maybe upwards of 11 million people total, I mean, that is psychotic in my mind.
Yeah. The complicating factor here is the dimensions of who Hitler was, because what you just said is correct. He was also an authoritarian. Mm-hmm. And it just depends on how you
what element of
exactly
are you comparing
exactly
to?
Which is interesting
because
because
Larry David isn't saying that Donald Trump has killed or is going to try to exterminate anyone. He's just saying the authoritarian dictator.
Well, we don't know. I mean, I don't know that
Larry David is. That's the comparison he's making, right?
I think that's the argument on Larry David's side, but it all. Yeah. It's funny because just the way that many people, myself included, views, Bill Maher's view of Trump at dinner and Donald Trump's actions as president as really combined, that they're not separate entities. You could say the same thing about Hitler, that it's all kind of in the same thing.
Right.
Taking a break.
All right. When we come back, President Trump still standing behind his guy at the Pentagon, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, no matter how many scandals come out, and there are new ones now. So when does this change? Will there be a change at the Pentagon? We'll be joined by Republican Congressman Marlon Stzman when we come back, who feels like President Trump is doing the right thing. Not everyone agrees.
TMZ's got every freaking thing. Big celebs, big stories, big events.
Justin Timberlake made Portland kids' dream come true by joining a bike bus ride. And they always listen to Justin Timberlake.
Cry me a river when they fall. Yeah, right.
It's TMZ.
The hits keep coming over at the Pentagon because the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, is under fire again. Has to do with his use of Signal. The fact that now there's a report from the AP that he was using Signal on an unsecured line. This, of course, comes on the heels of the other Signalgate flubs where there were people who didn't have clearance.
His wife, his brother, and his
who were
lawyer
clued in on communications about military action. So,
and by the way, and we should say, there's also a crisis at the Pentagon. There are people resigning. His chief of staff resigned. There are a lot of people there who are saying it is a fiasco and the Pentagon is in chaos.
I think it's important to note that the president still standing behind Secretary Hegseth. So, how long does this go on, and can it just continue as it is? Joining us right now to discuss this, Congressman Marlon Stzman. Congressman, welcome back to TMZ Live.
Thank you, gentlemen. Great to be with you today.
We appreciate it. So look, I run a company. We have over 200 people here. And I can tell you firsthand, you never get it right the first time, or even the second time. That you hire a bunch of people, and we are really small potatoes compared to
the Department of Defense.
Well, no, to the administration hiring thousands and thousands of people. And sometimes you just get it wrong. This, by all accounts, is just not working. He is not up to this job. And, you know, we can argue that. But when you look at Signalgate, when you look at the chief of staff resigning, his chief of staff, all the other people resigning, all of the information coming out about the Department of Defense is in chaos, even the perception of that is creating damage to the United States. Isn't it time?
Well, I don't know that it's time. That's going to be a decision that President Trump makes. And, you know, like yourself and myself, I was a CEO of our companies, and you're right that there's times that you pull a team together and you believe you got the right team in place, and things just don't go as smoothly. So, you know, I've always been one to be a little patient, if at all possible. Let people get their legs under them, let them get things worked out, get the bugs worked out. I understand this is the Department of Defense, and this is as serious as it gets when it comes to the operations for the security and safety of our country. But, you know, one of the things that we know is that President Trump is all about national security, keeping the country safe. And it's going to be up to him to make that decision. I'm sure he's having those conversations daily.
But what do you think?
What I think is that I'm going to give President Trump the benefit of the doubt. It's on him. He's the buck stops with him. And so he's going to be listening. That's one of the things I know President Trump to do very well, is to listen to those people around him. If he feels that at some point it's becoming a liability, he'll decide what's the right path forward. But he is going to be very aware of what is happening. And if there is going to be a distraction, he will make a decision one way or the other. I just don't have enough facts personally to be able to say one thing or the other. This really falls at the top with President Trump.
I was essentially the assistant to the commander of my base when I was in the Air National Guard. So I didn't exactly have a high position, but some of the stuff he did, I know is wrong. That when you are sharing classified military information to people who don't have security clearance on an unsecured network before an attack, you know it's wrong, because if they see a plane, they're going to shoot it down. And so it's obvious. And, you know, and then you look at putting unsecured internet lines in the Pentagon. Why? You've got a guy literally following him everywhere he goes with a bag of devices that can put him in touch with anybody in the world, including the president.
It almost makes it seem like you're intentionally don't want to be detected in this by the government that you're working for, that you are part of.
And Congressman, no disrespect, but you're in Congress. And I mean, don't you want to take a stand one way or the other? I mean, I don't know, maybe you support him, but this isn't the kind of thing where you don't have enough information. We're on the outside and it's obvious. So, I mean, at a point, don't you take a stand, even if it's against the guy in your party who's running the country?
Look, I am the same when it comes to my, you know, operations. When the job's not being done right, if it's not being properly handled, if accountability is not being put in place, if there's just too much evidence, and you know what? Maybe there is. I will just, you know, say if there's enough evidence and people keep talking about it, President Trump will listen to that. You know, I just won't, you know, be the one to say that he needs to go, because President Trump knows more. and we'll have to make the decision, and it falls back on him. And, I know it's easy
Did you feel that Biden should go during his term when it seemed like he wasn't with it?
Well, then Kamala would have been president, so I don't know.
But did you? Did you feel comfortable to take a stand on that? Because if you did on that, why not on this?
Well, again, because there was obviously a 4-year term, and we're less than 4 months under President Trump in the administration with Pete Hegseth. I'm willing to say, you know what? Let's get to the bottom of it. Let's have an investigation. There should be an investigation. Let's get the details, what happened, and then decisions can be made. But of course, I can just be assured that President Trump knows what's going on with Pete Hegseth, because he has high standards. He has expectations for all of those people who serve him in government. And if it becomes a distraction, and if there's fire, where there's
a
smoke,
distraction already.
Yeah,
that's already
undeniable, right?
Yeah, and if it continues, I think that there will be a decision made one way or the other. But he continues to say he's standing behind him, and as we all know, he'll stand behind him until if he changes his mind, he'll announce that. But again, I think that what Pete Hegseth is doing, his obviously the intentions are right, his mission is right. He's got to get this thing cleaned up, and if not, it'll continue to be a problem for him and the president.
All right, Congressman. Listen, before we go, I don't want to stir up any more controversy, but I can't help but notice you are obviously a congressman from Indiana with a Michael Jordan art piece on the wall behind you that can't sit well with Pacers fans.
Well, maybe not Reggie Miller, but
yeah.
I'm in northern Indiana, so I get away with it.
I see. Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
so.
That is funny.
He is the greatest of all time.
All right.
We are going to take a break.
All right. When we come back, Billy Ray Cyrus and Elizabeth Hurley, the couple nobody saw coming. Well, now Billy is explaining how it went down. How did they become a couple? You're going to hear him explain that and gush about his new love. Welcome back to TMZ Live. Boy, this was a real bonus Easter. You got Easter baskets, you got the Easter Bunny, Resurrection of Christ, and the birth of Billy Ray Cyrus and Elizabeth Hurley as a couple. I'm not ranking those. That's not in any ranking. It's not in any ranking of importance. But
saying nothing.
I just thought of this. What if we went with Elizabeth Cyrus?
Oh,
Elizabeth Cyrus? We just got to figure out what we're going to call them. But Billy Ray is, look, if you saw the photo that they posted on Easter Sunday.
Beliz.
Elizabeth Cyrus? Beliz? No. Workshop it.
Oh, I hate it.
A lot of people thought, all right, this was a joke, or maybe it's AI. It is very real, and Billy Ray opened up about not only how they got together, but this guy sounds like he's head over heels.
Did a film 2 years ago down in the Caribbean, and we did very few scenes together, but the couple times we were in the same scene, there was a chemistry there that felt. We just laughed. And then we did our couple scenes, and I left the island. We didn't speak for 2 years.
So I'm understanding this is like an actual relationship now. I think you're saying.
I would say
okay.
It feels very, she's a great human being.
Yeah, and he goes on to say that Elizabeth actually reminds him of Dolly Parton. She's a really strong businesswoman, and he really likes that about her. But then he also mentions that Elizabeth is the one who reached out to him. He said that he was in a very dark time. Yes, very sad, very depressed, and he was just going through his divorce.
From Fire Rose, right?
Yes, correct. So he was going through all that, and he's like, I got a text, and it was like, hey, if you ever need a friend, I'm here for you. And he was like, who is this? And she was like, Elizabeth Hurley. And he was like, oh my. And then it just
Hurley
let off
with
from
the
there.
swoop.
I know, she reached out to him, which I'm like, that's insane.
He's a good-looking guy, Courtney. Come on.
He is, but he was just going through the divorce. He was in a sad, so it's just crazy that she thought to reach out to him. It feels like she was playing the long game and waited for her opportunity to slide in, and she took it.
Been almost 3 years since that movie came out.
Good.
By the way, it was called Christmas in Paradise. If you want to go check it out, see if there was any chemistry.
Good on them.
Hi, I'm Delaney in Tampa, Florida. Look, Elizabeth is beautiful. She's British. She checks all the boxes.
she is age appropriate, but she's my birthday twin. So I feel like I have to protect her from this man. Like, I know that they're a good match and people like them, but after hearing what he said about Miley and Tish and screaming at his ex-wife, I just don't know how that was like attractive to Elizabeth Hurley. So I truly don't understand what she sees in this man, but I'm happy for them. It looks like they're happy.
I gotta ask, what do you do for a living? Because you are a good advocate.
Oh, I work in the media industry, TV media industry.
Yeah, you're a good advocate, I gotta say.
As a birthday twin, how do you, is it a telepathic thing? How do you reach out to her?
Yeah, I also have the same birthday as Judy Garland. Like, I just take that very seriously, you know what I mean? So I'm like, I need to protect this woman. She's a Gemini, so maybe she's just like, indecisive. Maybe it's a phase. I don't know. I hope she's happy though.
Should Judy Garland have married Sid Luft?
Okay, we're not going there.
Okay, we got to move on.
We got to move on to actually a very serious drama that Gilbert Arenas' family is going through. Gilbert Arenas, of course, the former NBA superstar, whose son we were just talking about last week. We got Gilbert and his son out talking about his career. He's about to go to USC. The young man suffered a horrific car accident early Thursday morning here in LA. And is hospitalized right now. He had been in a medically induced coma. Thankfully, this morning he's out, but we got this video from the crash scene moments after. He is trapped in that Cybertruck. He was the only person in it. He was driving, and that's him on the ground after some neighbors, Good Samaritans, were able to get him out.
Yeah, they were able to actually pry him out of the car. They struggled, I guess, getting one of the windows open. Were able to get him out. And the rep who kind of released the good news this morning that, he is out of the coma. I guess he opened his eyes. He's intubated. So he had to write on a piece of paper. But I guess the first thing he asked was if he had hurt anyone. So clearly doesn't remember what happened. And it's honestly very lucky to be alive.
Wow. God, that is horrible.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yes, Party live and direct from planet Earth. This Elijah Arenas situation is crazy. Pretty grim. I couldn't even watch the whole clip right there. I had to turn my head, and thankfully he's going to be okay. Moving forward, he's got to make better decisions. No high school kid should be riding around at 5 a.m. in the morning with no shirt and shoes on. But thankfully he's okay, and prayers to Gilbert and Gloria. Let's just hope he's okay moving forward.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think his mom is Laura, actually, Govan.
Well,
Gloria's sister. But anyway.
Okay, we got to take a break.
And by the way, this kid has a hell of a career ahead of him since going to USC, and everyone predicts he's got NBA talent, so everyone's hoping he is okay after this accident. All right. When we come back, do we need cars? Can we talk about this? Do we actually need cars anymore?
I'm voting no.
With rideshare services, automated rideshare services like Waymo, and Tesla's got one coming out.
And what about walking?
How about just walking? Exactly. Crazy, especially here in LA. When we come back, we're going to follow the money. With the crazy tariffs coming, maybe it's time to give up on cars. Damon John's going to be here. Welcome back to TMZ Live. With the tariffs, car sales are expected to plummet, really. There's one study that said they expect 2 million fewer cars to be sold in the U.S. and Canada.
But who knows what's going to happen with these tariffs anyway? I mean, it's like they're going up and
where
they're
they're going up.
It's like
exactly.
undulating.
But here's the thing. If that's true and there are fewer cars, the younger generation doesn't seem to care. That Gen Z...
And we should say that there are people in our office. There were people... Yeah, I didn't get a driver's license until last year.
Didn't
I
get
don't have
driver's
one yet.
license. And,
like,
and if they don't have cars.
You're
there are
adults.
A lot of people... And now, there are going to be some parts of the country where people go like, no, of course you have to have a car because you have too far to drive.
Yeah, but this is Los Angeles, and there are people here.
Who are willing to just use cars, to use Uber and
Waymo.
other... Yeah, and Waymo, which still freaks me out every time I see it. But is this the new way? Do we need cars? I can't believe I'm saying that as someone who loves cars, but maybe we don't.
This is a real thing.
We are following the money once again with our buddy Damon John. Damon, welcome back. No cars?
Thank you.
I don't... that people, especially here in LA, I am shocked at how many people in LA either don't have a car or if they have it, they rarely use it. So what does this mean for the auto industry?
Well, this is a tough one because, by the way, if you want to buy a car, you should buy a car right now that's on the lot, or you should do a lease right now because the tariffs will hit and you may want to say, oh, we're going to buy cars that are made in America. That's not going to happen because even though they're making in America, a lot of the parts come from overseas. So if you want, you have about 2 weeks to do that right now so you can save over a course of time. Now, let's talk about the new generation wanting cars or not. That's a tough one because in LA, how do you get around? You can't get around and, paying Uber and Waymo. You're going to spend $30, $50 a day. That can equate to almost $1,500 a month. But I think it's the swipe generation right now. It's just easier to do that. And I think they'll end up paying for it dearly later.
So even though they may feel like it's easier, they're like, oh, I don't have a car payment. But because they're just swiping, they don't think about how much they're actually spending. You're spending more than, if it's $1,500 a month, it's probably more than a car payment would be for a reasonably priced, economical car.
Now you're at the mercy of surging prices and various other things. I do believe that in another 3, 4, 5 years, you talked about Waymo. Waymo is small. They're not going to be able to scale as quickly as Tesla would because what Elon has been doing, whether you like Elon or not getting into the politics of it, what Elon and Tesla has been doing is we have all been driving Teslas and showing the tracking routes that these automated Teslas are going to be able to do in a couple of years. Now, what's going to happen? Why is that advantageous for us? Well, you could probably buy 3 or 4 cars and then put them on the road as automated vehicles and now autonomous vehicles. And all of a sudden now you'll be making money from these vehicles. And that's a whole different issue. But as of right now, we are in that fluctuation point where the dollars went down 7% in the last couple of weeks. Tariffs will come in and you're going to be at the mercy of paying more for these, these tariffs and spending more on the Ubers with a lesser dollar. So in the next 2 to 3 years, I think it's more costly. I think it's safer to buy a car right now, and then we'll just have to, as these things change, we're just have to going to revisit this thing.
I don't understand that because when you look at the cost of a car, or if you're leasing, the cost of a leasing payment, gas, insurance, and all those things, which you pay 365 days a year versus I'll get a Waymo when I need one, or even going to work every day. It just, I don't know. I haven't done the math.
Just but depends on how many times
it just feels a lot cheaper to me.
Yeah, well, you know what? I think you brought up a good point, Charles. People are moving further and further out because the cost of dwelling, in populated areas are more costly. But this becomes that kind of, listen, if I live within the city limits, am I going to really use a car that much? Am I going to kind of car share with people? Again, this is to each individual, but you can fight both cases. I don't need a car because I live in Brooklyn and I can walk.
Well, that's for sure. That's for sure. I swear, I've been thinking about this. In 25 years, I think cars are going to be antiquated because between public transportation, which is essential in big cities, and all of the ride shares and new things they're discovering to do that we haven't even thought about, I just think the cost of all of this is so burdensome to a lot of people, and the upkeep and all the other stuff. I just have this weird feeling
I think cars are going to get better, and you're not going to have to worry about as much.
I think it's the opposite.
On upkeep. I don't know.
I think in 15 years it will be illegal to operate a vehicle because to reduce accidents.
Right, and carbon emissions too. Even though they're going to electric and everything else, it's not the way of the world.
I think we will not have phones either. We'll all be having chips, and we definitely won't have paper money, and and I'll be wearing diapers. Right. But if you want to buy a car, or at least do it now, I'm telling you, because within the next week, and go to the car lots for the inventory they currently have, do not think Made in America is going to save you because the parts are all coming from overseas, even if they're assembled in America. So if you want to take away anything from follow the money, if you're deciding on a car right now, do it right now with the cars that are on the lot.
Otherwise, use your rideshare service.
Yep.
That's going to do it. Damon, thanks so much.
Appreciate it, Damon.
We'll see you next week.
Peace.
Thanks again. Okay, we're going to take a break.
When we come back, buckle up. Tonight's the night. The sperm race is going down, and the competitors Already, we've showed you them talking trash. Well, now they're getting ready for the weigh-in. What exactly do they weigh at a weigh-in for a sperm race?
Like, I'm 2 ounces?
Curious. Well, I think this is being as optimistic as you can be. The sperm race, the very first ever sperm race going down tonight here in LA.
This is going to be a big deal.
Obviously, the organizers feel it's going to be because they're already thinking about what they would do for the second sperm race.
So we should explain. We had participants on the show. We've had the organizers on the show. These are the guys, participants. Yep. Guy on the left is, I believe, USC. Guy on the right, UCLA.
Correct.
They are going to basically use their samples to see whose is the fastest.
Who's got faster swimmers. That video was them at the weigh-in last night here in LA.
So it's going to be an event, and there are going to be lots of students from both schools. They're going to be cheering them on.
There's going to be a lot of non-students there, too.
This is going to be a thing.
Well, we spoke to one of the founders, Eric, last night, and this is what he told us about the possibilities for Sperm Race 2.
This is like a really interesting experiment, right? No sperm race that happened before. Like if this goes well, we're gonna be in Vegas in a couple months doing like, a massive race with bigger celebrities. I think someone was talking to Nick Cannon yesterday, right? Which a lot of people, I didn't know who Nick Cannon was, but a lot of people have been wanting him. And I would love to have Shaq on, right? Or some other people, maybe Kendrick versus Drake, who knows? Or Trump versus Biden, right? That could always be something that happens.
I think if he were to get Nick Cannon next year and then like Elon Musk and have the battle of like the dads with the most kids, he would be setting himself up really good. You got Nick Cannon, who's an entertainer, Elon Musk, who's got money. They all got a lot of kids. I feel like they should be targeting those for the next race. And they also said they want to take this to the Olympics.
Hi, I'm Jada. I'm checking in from New Hampshire. And while this is very entertaining, I think this has got to be one of the most insane stories I've ever heard. I feel like we have so many better uses of our time, resources, energy, money than this. It kind of feels like it was organized by a bunch of middle school boys in a bathroom at lunch. But
it may have been.
It may have been. But they're just beyond middle school.
Mark my words. We're going to talk about this on Monday. We'll show you how many people showed up and what it looked like, but I think this is going to be a big thing.
Win, lose, or draw.
We are going to take a break.
All right, when we come back, a big night for Selena Gomez. She's going to prom.
Yeah.
What? Selena Gomez? Prom? Too old for that, right? Well, some things you get to relive or live for the first time. Benny Blanco, gotta think, he thinks of everything, man. This guy is Mr. Romance. We know we're all entering prom season, and I guess this is probably something he and Selena have talked about, the fact that she did not go to her prom. So Benny decided to whip one up just for her.
So he gets a stretch limo. She dresses up, comes down the stairs the way a prom girl would. They kiss at the stairs.
What do you know about the way a prom girl would come down?
I had my share of proms.
Share of proms?
I actually went to 2.
Really?
I did.
Did you greet her at the bottom of the staircase like that?
There was a staircase in one.
Wow.
The other was a ranch-style house.
Oh, you were in the valley.
I mean, he is a romantic guy.
He really is.
He really is a romantic guy.
I got to hand it to him. That's
Where's a boutonniere, Selena? You're supposed to give him a boutonniere. Did she get a corsage? Are they still doing that?
Wow.
Is that going on still?
Boutonniere.
God, am I
oh my God.
Enjoy the sperm race. We'll see you on Monday.